Dang it. That's the wrong music. You know what? I'll just fix this later. Welcome, folks, to another episode of the High Tech Podcast. We are here, and I hope you enjoy a couple of laughs because we're in a new stage of life. There's so much more. We'll come back to that later, but there's so much more happening around us right now. We're just making it work. So you've seen our beautiful intro. There should be some music when I'm done editing this. Hopefully that's there. But as always, you have your hosts, Will and Josh, joined by our friend, our favorite, a member and family member of the podcast, Robin S. Jeffers, with us here today. How are you today, Robin?
I'm great. How are you?
We're doing good. We're making it work. Whether the tech works how we expect it to or not, that's fine. Before we jump into the what and the how and the why, as always, folks, remember, we've got social media and things like that for you to follow us on. They're on screen currently, but you can find us at High Tech Pod or at High Tech Podcast. One of two of the others. Stuck the landing. You can email us.
It's TikTok right now, so you're great.
I'm a Hey, never mind. I was about to touch something I should not touch. Yeah, we have a
I just wanted to see.
It's a tarp.
We do have a TikTok somewhere.
It exists. If TikTok still exists, we also exist on TikTok.
It does indeed. It was only down for a few hours.
There we go. It was probably just publicity. Again, I shouldn't touch it.
Next week, things could change.
True. This episode will come out on January 28th.
Vine could be back, or MySpace.
Vine?
This would be a great time to bring MySpace back. I'm just throwing out some ideas.
I think it exists, though, right? It's not like gone.
MySpace? We've literally talked about this on the podcast before. The website is still there somewhere. Yeah. It's just mostly broken.
It's still like mostly.
If you've watched the low-key TV show, it's like that weird, like outskirt place he goes where everything's like broken and just like there's a sad like old low-key sitting around and you know what I mean? Like that's MySpace right now. It's just. It's
Tom's profile still has the original picture of Tom.
Yeah, it's Ghostland with like a digital version of Tom just walking around.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go. That went down a weird train. Continue what you were doing.
Well, so the usual social media inbox at hightechpod.us. And Robin, what's our website? So you can close this out. What's our website that everybody should go check out?
Hightechpod.us.
Or come on.
Or don't try to bring the debate back. There's no debate. You have not called it .us for like 2 years.
100 episodes. I don't even know when the last time it was.
Yeah, that was like the first few months of episodes.
You're like Elon over here trying to pretend like Twitter is still X. You know what I mean? Like that's not.
We're not going political this week.
I'm not political. By stating my view of the name of Twitter. I've made that very public on this podcast.
That's fair. I'm going to left turn us here real hard. So this week, very excited to have Robin as always. But in the past, it's been like the Robin S. Jeffers Learning Taxonomies series. There's been specific things.
Very famous one.
We've done a lot of different content. This time, Josh and Robin have been preparing this conversation, I think both for like the day job thing, but also an upcoming conference or something. And I'm going to play passenger. I'm here to like set us up and put the ball on the little T-ball thing. And now one of you can swing.
The little T-ball
thing.
I think it's just called a T, isn't it?
The T.
Yeah. The ball goes on the T. Even I know that. You watch real sports.
Look at us talking about sports ball. Look at you.
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Josh just got me in sports. It's great. No, but the topic I have on screen is continuous course improvement and Oscar. I know kind of generally what these things mean. I have a lot of context just from talking to Josh over time. But Josh, why don't you set the stage for us a little bit? Is this something that's coming right out of the day job, or is this something you guys are investigating, researching? Set that for us.
Yeah, no. So we don't do this at all on the day job. No, I'm just joking. This was like an entire year of Robin and I's life. And I'm acting like it's over. It's not over.
It's not over.
It's been. I took a 4-month break, but it's not over.
And Robin carried the banner forward.
Yeah, she did. I mean, so I'll set the stage this way. Robin, feel free to chime in and add whatever you'd like there. But like so in our situation, the institution we were in, we were trying to figure out how to do actual course improvement, right? So we designed a whole lot of courses, a very large number that we don't want to ever do
again. Was it 200?
It was less than 200.
It was less than 200.
It was less than 200. It was over 100, less than 200. So
it was enough that people in our industry, when we told them how many, would say, "What are you, nuts?"
Yes.
And we'd say,
the answer is yes. So anyway, when you produce so many courses, there was no time to do improvement. So our team kind of had to like shut down improvement at that point. And quite honestly, the institution had not really had a solid plan in place for improvement for a long time. And that's not a criticism of anybody at the institution Robin and I are at. It's just a reality. And honestly, I don't think it's just them. I think Robin, you'd probably agree. Like my take is there are a lot of institutions and also corporations who don't have good plans for improving courses. I mean, Will, you and I have worked in corporate at different places, and I've seen the same problem in corporate. It's like we launch a course, and then nobody actually like makes a solid plan for improving the course. Like at some point, somebody down the road just starts asking for changes. And nobody actually asks, are they the right changes? And
I'm closing in on 4 years on corporate, and I'm not touched one course I've ever launched. Just saying.
Exactly.
Not that this is needed or anything. I make perfect courses. We don't need to touch
you and I joke about this. Like in the Addy side of things, everybody stops at implementation, and then evaluation they deal with later. It's usually like implementation, and then I think it should just have a C at the end, which is just changes. Like people want to change things.
I think it's just a dot and ellipsis. Like
Well, to be fair, we used to have a portion of time. So like we would design a course, it would launch, and then we would do what was called a post-pilot. But many times that wouldn't happen for any number of reasons. So it just kind of lingered there in our little project space. And like it just never came back.
That you had a mechanism for it. Like you called it post-pilot. There was something that was supposed to hold the spot.
But that was always tied to like the first run of the course, essentially.
Right.
Like that's and I see that on the corporate side too, like bridging those gaps. They'll have a similar concept where like you release the course, and at least after the first time it runs, you do evaluation. I think the thing that I see a big issue with, especially in online course development, whether it's training courses or academic courses, is they'll release that and they might do a post-pilot, but a lot of them, in my opinion, have never had great systems for how to continually improve the course. Like we were using that term a lot over the year we were releasing this system, which is like we need to actually continuously improve the course. In my experience, it was either like a post-pilot or things got bad and people weren't happy with the retention in the course. And then all of a sudden we're like scrambling to do these like emergency projects to change the course without any real care to evaluating why we're changing the course or are we doing the right changes. And what that resulted, at least for us, was multiple years of Band-Aid solutions, in my opinion, that just wasn't great. And so finally we were actually tasked with and able to kind of like plan out and release an entire continuous improvement process. Like I know it's not a secret on the podcast. I'm a process guy, very much so. I know everybody's shocked.
I hear all of them right now going,
these are news releases for the reels today. We really believed that it was when a lot of people go to improvement, they look at what they're improving. And we wanted to say you need to back away first and go, what's the process for evaluating what needs improved and deciding what's best when to improve, right? So that's kind of what happened. And it was nicknamed Project Penguin on our end. So there were a lot of penguin emojis. I think somebody came up with an acronym later on our team for what it was. I wish we could say we came up with it first, but we just liked penguins and we started calling it Project Penguin. That's an aside.
Well, didn't you? Wait, no, there was another reason. You didn't want to call it what we had been calling it.
There have been that's right. There have been acronyms going around. Like it had been CEP for course enhancement project. And then there was another project that had happened that was called the CIP, which was course improvement project.
And these were coinciding, these were happening at the same time.
Real quick, for those not watching, Will is just continuously putting up penguins in case anybody's curious.
As many as I can.
No, next they need to go on the screen like bubbles,
I wish
if
I could do it, I would.
We don't know how to. We need to prep for that. We need like a video layer. It's a whole thing. It's anyway. So there's reasons behind it, but that's eventually kind of what led us to this. And I think the reason I think it's helpful to talk about here on the podcast, and why Robin and I are actually going to talk about it at a conference is, Ryan, I think this is fair to say, we see this as a problem that was not just for our institution. And as we started talking to more people, we started realizing, I think we came up with something here, and we're currently evaluating it. So it's not perfect. It's going to need changed. It's going to need adapted. But we think we were onto something.
To set one more piece of the stage. So Josh, you just really brought it forwards on the your process involvement, project management. You're of course involved in the tech, the LMS, the distribution, the editing, all that. But Robin, you're on the design side, right? That's your role in this. You're the leadership or the manager in the instructional design team.
Yeah.
Talk about that from what it means to your team, to set this in place.
Well, I think a really important part of all of this was that we did so much planning on the back end of this. We met for a long time over and over about different parts of this. We met with a focus group too to get some buy-in from the faculty, because that's important. Because if they're going to be doing this, really, they're the drivers. Our office is an academic service office. We are there to support them. So we can't just go into their courses and start fixing things. So I know, right? We want them to be a collaborative part of it. So we met with groups of faculty members before we actually even implemented anything. So I think just that whole planning process too was really helpful in all of this. And then of course, walking our team through it. And it's different. So doing a development project is actually very much different for our team than doing an improvement project, because a development project, we have, set things that we do every time and that are there. But improvement projects, a course can be improved for any number of reasons. And so the focus is not always determined at the beginning, so that they really have to work hard to do that.
Very different to change out all the videos because we want a new background or a new faculty member, as opposed to rewriting learning objectives and therefore the assessments and everything like that. Those two things are very different scope. And then there's always just typographical. People always just want to change a paragraph, edit of this, edit of that. Do you all distinguish that kind of stuff? Do you just allow edits as you go, or is that controlled and has to be a part of the revision later? If it's something small, just the paragraph.
Will's totally leading this question because he knows my personality, and he knows that there's no way there was a project Josh Schwartz was involved in that just allowed edits to happen.
Right. There's got to be something.
Controls and process.
And levels.
So let's talk about a couple things I think that are important to this, right? Is that I think it's just want to re-highlight what Robin was talking about. One of the things, if you're looking to figure out how you improve your courses, whatever that is, training courses, academic courses, stop just trying to do all the changes first, okay? And step back and ask who are all the stakeholders involved in this and work with them to come up with a process that brings them all together on a regular basis. If you want to continually improve and not just keep doing one-offs, that was one of the big things that Will's writing down on his hand. That was
I guess not relevant. I don't know what you're talking about.
That helped us. And that was all Robin and I's idea, right? The director we work under, Eric, this was part of his desire too. We kind of all got together and we're this is one of the things we need to do well. And I think we did that well in the project. And it wasn't just us. It was a whole team effort at doing that. And what that allowed us to do is we were realizing to keep improving courses, we needed to find a process that allowed people to know when they think an improvement needs to happen, when they notice something needs changed, when a video goes down, or when they see a huge issue with a major project, they need to know where to go with that and how it would be acted on. Because we were seeing a lot of people just like submit things to us and expecting it'll be done tomorrow, or making big suggestions that they just assumed they had the power to change. And in our situation, for context, I've talked about this on the podcast before, Robin and I work in a masterized model, meaning there's like, we developed that whole course. It's kind of locked down. It's not something like a professor just changes anything they want in the course, which is how a lot, I think, of corporate side training courses, that's very much how those are run in most cases. You've got some kind of course that not just anybody can change. So anyway, to that point, out of that came levels. And this is where Robin and I test ourselves to see if we define them the exact same way, because there's been some debate amongst other team
continues
members.
to be debate, actually, about the levels.
So
we know
that's
what
fine.
are, though. We can just stop there.
Yeah.
Those are the levels of severity, right? We're not just talking level 1's video, level 2's ed type. Like, it's the easy stuff to the hard stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And what it came down to is we defined it as basically a handful of levels. And Robin's already kind of referenced a couple of them. We had kind of a basic level that we called maintenance. And within that, there were also kind of two different terms in maintenance, which was like emergency ones that needed changed immediately. And there were only like two of them, which is basically like a link is broken. Or like a video
setting is wrong.
Yeah, or like a setting is stopping a student or a learner from submitting something. Like something that's like stopping the course from working. Or something. But there's a lot of other maintenance stuff that's like instructions could be clarified. In our case, in academia, syllabus updates, stuff like that. That's like, those need made, but they don't need made tomorrow. Right. And within that, we had definitions for all the people involved of how soon they could expect by the time they submit those types of submissions. That's when it would go through, right? Next level was kind of improvement, and this is more the broader category. This is where like suggestions could be submitted, and then depending on what the owner of the course wanted to do, in our case, that's like a program manager, program coordinator, they can look at those suggestions. And
along with other things.
Yes, along with other things, which I'll let Robin talk about here in a second. With our Oscar rubric, which is also a part of this and was really built into it. They look at that along with what's called the Oscar rubric to kind of evaluate what needs to be done and kind of develop an improvement project. And that really came out of a philosophy that while there's some stuff that needs made continuously, like edits, maybe small clarification to instructions, videos, when it comes to like making bigger changes in the courses, we want to be careful about just doing whatever we think in that moment, and we want to do more of a bigger push on it. And so we have an improvement project is what we defined it as, and we said how many hours we were willing to do that in. And then development is the larger group, and that's like a brand new course we're making, or we're redeveloping the entire course, which means we're just from the ground up doing whatever we'd like to the course. And completely changing that could be a much broader category. So
is that
feel like that captures that, Robin?
That is so large.
We agree? Okay.
Yes, it does. And of course, so all of these levels, well, the emergency ones, if they are indeed emergencies and students are prevented from learning, they just happen immediately. But then like any other maintenance suggestions or the improvement or redevelopment is driven by the program coordinator, or approved at least by the program coordinator. So, and that's part of the plan that we had in place before. Like, we wanted them to feel empowered to take ownership of their programs.
Throughout those three steps, though, what you're bringing up there, Robin, is like you are invested in your stakeholders. You specifically at least have the program coordinators, managers involved, faculty, student review. What other stakeholders are involved in these three processes?
So in the improvement process, so Josh was saying how instructors can submit a form and suggest things, but we're not just going to change them like automatically. We need approval. And then so the program coordinators can take those suggestions and what they know about the course and some analytics that our LMS shows, and then this Oscar rubric, and like all of those things get put together ideally for them to request a project.
Through the many amazing things that Josh and his team automate and coagulate and correlate and
yes, they click a button on the rubric that says order a project and an email comes to me.
Yes, an email comes to her. There's a whole thing. Obviously, we built, I'm not going to get into the technical side of it, but there's a reason we love Notion and Airtable on this podcast, because we facilitated and automated most of this process through those two tools. And kind of connected that into there. But I want to, I think, highlight then the big part of this. And this was kind of like an aha moment in planning the project, which was I don't know exactly everything we were struggling with at that moment, but I think we were all kind of struggling with like, how do we define these different levels and what fits into them? Like we had some like ballparks and what we were looking at doing. And we just kind of looked at, so we've talked about it before on here, but what we kind of called the Oscar rubric, or what does OLC actually call it? Is it just called Oscar rubric or Oscar scorecard? That's what it is. Which we talked about here before. We kind of looked at it and we were like, well, Oscar already kind of defines all of these things, but they don't give them these titles. Right. They essentially say, here are all the different things that could improve a course, from the technical side to the design side to user experience side. They kind of have that all defined in this rubric that they call their scorecard, and you kind of go down and evaluate a course. Well, we ended up looking at that and going, well, what if we just built that into the whole process? And so some of the smaller stuff the rubric identifies fits into our maintenance category, but some of the other stuff fits into this larger category that the program coordinator is actually using. So when they're deciding what they want to do in an improvement project, they're not just looking at this whole list of things people have given them. They're looking at that list. They're looking at the analytics. They're looking at the other data that they have, and then they're filtering that through the rubric. We kind of give them a tool for doing that, so that they can look at it and go, what should actually be done? And that was our attempt to kind of put somebody in the driver's seat that could help filter what's being submitted. Because I mean, we've all experienced this. I laugh at it every time. Somebody puts out some kind of course revision form. Usually when they're like, we're going to start improvement, the first thing they do is, well, we'll create like a form that people could tell us what needs changed. And then inevitably in like 2 months, 2 people submit completely the opposite changes. Like they're I want this changed. I want this video to not say this. And then a day later, somebody's like, actually, I want the video to say the opposite of whatever that person said. Like that's basically what happens.
And they'll never agree. Those 2 people will never agree on which one of the two.
So this was to kind of create a system that like one person could kind of field based on what the objectives are, and the rubric from Oscar that we've kind of put as our kind of evaluative tool, kind of the pinnacle of what we're looking at, filtering through those, how can that happen? And so it's kind of built in throughout the whole process. I don't know, Robin, you're the Oscar rubric queen, or whatever
Oscar
title
queen.
we were doing you for a while. Yeah, Oscar queen.
Wait a second. Back in my day, Justin was the Oscar king. So are you the king and queen of court, or has he relinquished his crown?
I don't know if he knows he relinquished it.
Even better.
I think J-Man would say he still owns that crown. I would say that crown is gone. And there is only a queen.
I'm gonna briefly, for listeners' purposes, we keep saying Oscar. That is not spelled like the name. We do have it on screen if you're just listening. It's OSCQR, and it's from SUNY. So you can go to oscqr.suny.edu. That's on screen if you're watching, but if you're just listening, to help folks out, this is a wonderful resource. We were looking at it, using it, reviewing it, even back in 2015 or 16, where Josh and Robin are working. And that's where we're saying Justin still works there, a different team. He loved this thing, and we were all trying to onboard it then. If only we had had a Josh and not a me, it might have happened then, because Justin was very passionate about it.
I love Justin, but I also think you need a Robin in that equation. Because Robin's the one who really dove into this on the OLC side, and like you got your certification in it, and brought kind of the knowledge to say the way we've been using it on our team up to this point has been wrong. Which is, and this is why I think it's important. The whole process, if you want to continuously improve a course, is I think it's important to acknowledge and look at this and go, like, an Oscar tool is not meant to be like you check these things off because you've met them. It's that you're always trying to improve these different things. And as the course runs, you're finding out more information about how it doesn't necessarily meet that. And that's why maybe we've started using rubric more than scorecard as a concept, because it's not really like it meets a score and then it's just done.
Right. And that's how we were doing it. And that's yeah, so in the beginning, and they officially adopted this in 2018. So I think you were still there in 2018? No?
The first half of the year, I guess.
Maybe.
He was not there. Our team, doesn't necessarily matter for the podcast, but our team was using it. And then I think shortly after Will left and I switched in, the institution actually formally adopted it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was never. It was only ever a pipe dream in my day.
Well, your dream was realized.
Justin was a part of that group that kind of did the hard work of getting it formally approved.
Sure. Thank you, Justin.
Yes, thank you. So we were using it as like more of a checklist, and every new development would go through this Oscar checklist, and it would get a score. And oh gosh, in the early days, we even had like institutional directives, which I kind of wish would come back, but that's neither here nor there. But now we use it Version more 2. So as like the meets expectations, or like it's more of a fluid scale. It's not like a yes no. It's a we're mostly there, or you're all there. Like we have sufficiently present. I think needs improvement.
Yeah.
Like so
sufficiently present.
There's different levels.
Minor revision, moderate revision, major revision, and not applicable. Right. So what we're kind of saying there is looking at that, at least as I understand it, this is where Robin's expertise would fit better than mine. Is you're looking at that and going, okay, is this present enough? Is it, this one thing could be better about this category, right? And some of them are like, course includes welcome and getting started content. And sometimes it's either it just includes that or not, but sometimes that welcome and getting started content could be better. There could be something in there that's a bit
and that's
better.
where the checklist didn't serve, because somebody would have at some point just checked that off. Oh yeah, it's got a welcome video. We can move on. But was the welcome video captioned? Was it more than 30 seconds? Did it actually address the learning objectives? Was the video done like up someone's nose on their laptop camera, or was it actually shot? There's tons of reasons why that video might need improvement. So
and then there's room for commenting, and so it just gives the program coordinators or IDs or whoever's doing the evaluation really a chance to add some nuance and some intentional thought and ideas. And I should say also, so as part of this improvement process, so Oscar has 50 standards across 6 different categories. And so when a course is up for improvement, the program coordinator may not fully understand, for example, the tech integration into the LMS. So they're not responsible for evaluating that part. Our program coordinators actually only evaluate 25 of the standards. Wow. And then our team is also doing that. And our editors are doing some of them, and our technologists are doing some, and our IDs are doing some. So it's really a collaborative team effort based on our areas of expertise. Wow. So that's another big piece.
That's a lot of hands on the wheel.
It really is.
That can be good. That can be bad. Now, y'all are proposing a bit of what you want to accomplish, but some of this is in place, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, is this whole process in place?
Everything we're talking about right now is in place.
So how is that going? How is that part going, where you've got the program, I've got all these hands on the wheels? Are you getting these things through, or is it slowing down a lot?
It's going pretty well. It was a little rocky to start. So after the program coordinator does their evaluation, it comes to our team to do our evaluation. And then our IDs curate a plan. We call it action report. So they, write down all the things. They combine, they look at the program coordinator's evaluation and our teams, they synthesize it all together. And then they come up with this action plan report, and then they take it back to the program coordinator and, confirm it with them. Like, is this what you meant? And there have been some rocks, some bumps in the road, some vagueness that was then felt later on because it turned into a reality and it was actually too much for any one person. So our team has had to learn how to be clear and specific. And I think they're doing a really good job. Like now they've got some, under their belts. And I think it's definitely smoother now than it was at the very beginning. As it would be. I mean, as anything new, you get better at it.
Absolutely. Is OSCQR being applied to maintenance, improvement, and development at each of the 3 stages, or is it only being applied at a certain point in this process?
So it is, we still use it at the end of development. So like every new course gets an initial OSCQR review by the ID. And then I did at the very beginning of this like planning in this process, I did go through all of our maintenance, improvement, redevelopment levels and assign OSCQR standards to each thing that we thought might, like each component of a revision that might happen in a course.
Yeah.
So there is a breakdown. I mean, our team sees that more than the academic departments.
Sure.
They only see what they need to see because we don't want to overwhelm them or stress them out.
Well, I think that's what was helpful for me in the process that we were looking at it is most of the other processes I've been involved in or we had at LBC, and I think, Will, you could attest to this, right? Like you've experienced this both on higher ed from smaller institutions to larger, is a lot of times we ask the instructor or we include student support. There's a way for student support to submit stuff too, so a lot of times we ask those people to define for us what type of issue it is. And we were often finding that that's just a mistake. Like we did a bunch of user testing on like course revision forms. And Robin and I laugh about this, and Will, I'll tell you off the podcast, you know who the person is. They're submitting the form, and they look at the form, and we did kind of like a user testing model where like they're on the form they're submitting. Robin and I are telling them what they need to do, but we're not telling them how to do it. And we ask them to kind of talk out loud, tell us why you're doing what you're doing. And our old form used to have this situation where they would select, like, is this something urgent that needs, like, fixed tomorrow? Or is it something else that is one of these other categories? And they looked at the form and they said, this probably isn't urgent, but I'm just going to select urgent every time because I want it done. And so he, like, selected it. And we were like, okay, so we're immediately getting rid of that question.
Your urgent is not my urgent.
Yeah. And we're still, I think, figuring out the kinks in this, right? Like, it's still not done perfectly, but I think one of the best things we made change-wise is we kind of did a lot of planning to define ahead of time what types of things fit into which categories. And so at the maintenance level, somebody might not necessarily be looking at an OSCQR rubric, but Robin did a ton of work at the planning level to define what from OSCQR fits in maintenance and what type of categories are those, so that when somebody selects those options on the form, our automated process then looks at that and goes, oh, this is not a thing that's going to go to an improvement project. This is a thing that has to go here. There's a whole workflow for that.
Wow.
And that's where I think Robin's going to talk about the planning level. Like we did a lot of effort to plan out how things fit. And some people would look at us and say, like, I mean, Robin, we spent, what, 8 months, 9 months planning out the entire process? Like, I know somebody who was a person who is no longer there that would look at us and go, that's way too long. This is totally inefficient. You planned out this. I would probably say this process has made more efficient changes and more changes in less time than their quick down and dirty, like, just do a project now and not plan workflow did. Because when you just let go of all that planning, you end up kind of just like jumping in like a bull in the china shop to make changes, and you end up breaking other things you didn't realize you were going to break.
No, that never happens. What?
Yeah.
And you don't have faculty buy-in. If you're just gonna bull in a china shop, tear it apart, you won't have buy-in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I think that planning was key.
Oh yeah.
In there, and that's why, like, as we're looking at this, like, my recommendation, like, why are we talking about this? There's a lot of things I think Robin and I want to share how OSCQR can be helpful and how it connects into. And this wasn't necessarily the side I was planning on talking about, but I'll talk about it anyway. Is that, like, if you want to actually continually improve courses, and I keep using that term because I feel like it's thrown around a lot in our world, both from like a corporate training side to online courses to even like faculty and teachers who talk about their courses. They're like, I want to continually improve them. When you're just one teacher teaching a course and you want to continually improve them, that process is less complicated because you're the main stakeholder and your students are the main stakeholders. So you just take that feedback. But a lot of our like learning and development world is moving more towards masterized systems that can understandably push out more consistent courses, no matter where you're at. When you're in a process like that, there's a lot of different stakeholders involved. And the biggest thing is plan and identify who all is involved and how can you have some kind of process that engages those people regularly. Because I think that's there's a lot of stuff about this process I think we like and we want to improve, but I think one of the things I'm happiest to see about it is like you have people talking about courses that we didn't have talking about courses a year ago. Because everybody kind of had their own ideas about how to change the course, but they didn't know what to do with it. So they all just kind of like either changed it, complained that they couldn't change it, or just like didn't say anything because they weren't sure what to do, and I think that's the biggest thing. We kind of just opened communication and built a process that helps people see where they need to go. And OSCQR as a tool, I think, is fantastic because it already defines a lot of what improves a course for you. And so that's where I think we kind of built off of that.
From the outside looking in, one of the things that is critical to this is that when I deal with similar issues in corporate context, like you just said, this person wants this change, this person wants that change, and like, oh, just fix it, do that. It snowballs so quickly that efficiency you were just talking to is lost. Suddenly I've made changes to a course and it's on version 17 when I could have probably, and this Josh might point, I don't have a process, but I also don't have authority. I don't have authority.
Different thing.
Nobody gives me that authority as the learning expert in the room. So they just show up and go, break fix. And so I make 17 versions of a course. But if there was that authority, which you guys have kind of in some ways latched onto, but you got certified, Robin, you all are experts in the room. You've all proven it through experience, through continued education, through teaching, etc. Like if I had that same kind of authority and somebody looked at me and was, oh, he's the learning expert in the room, then I know I could get them to convince to a point of working with me, getting everything consolidated. And then I could make 2 and 3 changes to a course and we would only ever see V3 before I launch it. Like I've literally gotten up to the 20s in versions of courses from stakeholders going, no, change this word. No, change that part of the video. No, take that slide out. No, that shouldn't be publicly. And now I'm like, okay, that's different stakeholders, different problems. But when I hear that you've got not only this buy-in across the people, faculty, staff, leadership, your own team, you've got the systems to support it. You've got a large corpus, right? The body of work you're dealing with is hundreds of courses. And you've got what's that?
I think something like that. Or wait, 400 or 600?
I think it's more like 6.
Is it more like 6? Okay.
Yeah.
Fully online.
Yeah.
Oh, days. I remember like we touched 3s or something like that in my days. So you've at least doubled. I don't even know if I'm accurate, but all of that then backed by an industry renowned system like OSCQR. Like you've done it. If you could package this up into a software and sell it, you'd be millionaires.
And it also helps that so Josh and I are very different people. But but I needed Josh in my life because he
We
is
all
the
needed
planner. And our director too. They're just super, super great at taking a step back and looking at everything and planning. And that's, I think, probably the biggest key here. But also, our people work well together. Like our IDs have certain departments that we usually that we try our hardest to pair them with all the time, because that consistent face and voice, like they know exactly who to go to if they have issues. And also, like, doing our work in the cadence of cycles that we do, like we put a lot of emphasis on scheduling, and that, you don't just get your project whenever you feel like it. We're going to fit you in to a preset schedule so that we can respect everyone's workload. And I think that really matters too, because we maximize that time. So like we put a lot of emphasis on it on purpose, because I don't want to say it's like you get this one shot and then you don't come back to it again, because continuous improvement is continuous. Like there's no rule on how many times a course can go through this, but like we put a lot of emphasis on this specific time that you are going to be scheduled to work on this thing. And nobody wants to waste anybody's time, especially their own. So they're really going to think about it and put that effort in. So I have 6 weeks that I can really focus. So let's really focus. Wow. Lock in, as my son would say.
Well, and I think we took some of the pressure off of that and that's why I think the levels thing is important. Like if I'm recommending it, we've even Will, you and I have talked to people outside of work environments about improvement stuff and looking at that. And we've suggested Oscar before and all these different things. Like I think my biggest things, is planning out those stakeholders, looking at those things, but then defining what we use the term in our team all the time, appetite, because we've stolen it from 37 Signals and Basecamp, and we have a problem, but it's fine.
No problem.
But it's this idea about how much time do you want to commit to certain things, right? And so we took some of the pressure off of, well, we only get to do this project on this course so often. We've taken that pressure off by also saying, well, there's these other 12 things that are smaller that will get continually changed as you submit them within a certain time frame. And that's done much quicker. Right. So I think when we started doing that, because I think a lot of my experience in this has been faculty, when you start pushing that, is to say, well, I need to make these changes tomorrow. Well, if you start to dig in with them, you start to realize, no, what you want to make tomorrow is these 4 things. This bigger thing you want to do, you're just lumping it in with this because you want to do all of it at once. Right. But if you actually don't do it all at once, you can tackle the smaller things, the higher priority things sooner and more efficiently. And then you can deal with some of the other bigger things when you actually have time to commit energy to it. If I had $1 for every teacher, facilitator, subject matter expert who really wants to make a change, and then you get them in on the project on the course and they're on vacation, not there for it. I wouldn't have to be working. It would be much so that also I think is a big part of it. Is taking that energy and Robin said, locking it in. And we don't have time to talk all about cycles and how that's done that stuff, but I can at least get on this one soapbox for a second, which is that recently is experiencing 2 different teams. I'm maybe crossing a line. I don't know. We'll see what happens. This might get edited.
No. Let me mark this moment in case I need to edit it. Oh, Mark.
I was on a team that was not doing this type of thing. They were just making changes all the time. A submission would come through, it gets changed. There was no approval. It was just this person comes through. If they ask for it to be changed and it's not wrong, the information isn't wrong, then change it. But then they could never do anything else to their courses efficiently. They were trying to translate all their courses to Spanish for good reason, for accessibility reasons, for a huge population of learners that they had that were speaking Spanish as their first language. And it took 6 months to just figure out how to, by the time I left, they still hadn't figured out how to translate all the courses to Spanish.
Oh, no.
Because there was this complicated system of having to figure out, well, how do we deal with changes? Because updates could happen at any time.
Right.
So we
If the
stop all
English
the updates?
changes, the Spanish
Yeah,
has to
like, do
change
we
too.
update
Who
this? Like,
tracks
there was
that?
all this complication about this, and to their defense, there was progress being happened, and I think somebody kind of approved to kind of lock down the edits on those sections of courses
Right.
until Spanish was done. But like again, the debate that went on for weeks about that, I'm sorry, like
Yeah.
in our team that wouldn't have happened. Like that would have been figured out beforehand.
Yeah.
And like
One of the things you're pointing out though there, Josh, like that raises the urgency issue, right? And like you already said, like people would put like, I'm marking this urgent because I want it done now, and even though you told me it's not urgent, it's like, so you guys just did away with that. Like, one of the biggest issues in this revision process is urgency, that it's got to be done now, and that becomes like a tyranny, right? Like you start to be run by urgent. And we all know the Eisenhower matrix and all that stuff, like what's urgent with this and that and priority, and like there's no way to do urgent all the time. And one of the things I remember from my days at LBC was that was the feast and famine approach. Like if we had courses to make, everyone was busy making courses. Well, then we got a little bit of downtime, so we start to cycle back through like, well, what can we do for revisions? Well, were they asked for? Do we have justification and authority to it? Because in those days, no, we didn't touch revisions unless it was really pushed down on us to do them. And so you get this thing where it's like, all right, we got a feast. We got so much to do. We got courses to build. Suddenly we got something, and we get quiet. Let's try to do some revisions. We got a famine. It's really quiet, blah, blah, blah. And then we spike back up again into a feast where we're tons of courses. Something happened. Something had to change. And all those revisions got forgotten about. And that was that tyranny we got stuck in. When you work in any sort of cycle-based system, like Josh, you said, we don't need to get into the details, but like just a structured, time-oriented, scheduled system, there is a very small space for urgent, and it's reserved. There's time kept for urgent, and everything else is not urgent. It goes to tomorrow, and that's okay. I love that about the system you guys are talking about, but I lived in also that world where the urgent, it's a dictator, and it's traumatic. It's stressful.
And it is sometimes frustrating for the people that we're scheduling.
Right.
I mean, they're like, well, why can't I have it right now? And I'm like, well, our team isn't available. Well, what are they doing all day? Well, they're doing other projects. Like
Their jobs.
their job. They're doing work that I give them.
I will point out, like, to our defense, because I've seen this debate over and over again, both in the situation Robin and I are in other situations we've been in. Will and you and I have dealt with this with consulting, right? It's like the reaction to we're going to schedule it here is always like, well, we need it done now, and we built a system that evaluates whether it needs done now or not. It's not like Robin and I in our work are saying there's never anything that just like emergency happens. It does.
Emergencies happen all the time.
Yeah, we have literally a system built into our planning and our scheduling called emergency projects. How do we make sure emergency stuff happens?
I knew it. I didn't know it, but I knew you had that. I knew it.
We had it. We have a whole system for how this happens, and emergency improvements have come through at different times.
Yeah. Right.
But the reality is, I love all the people we're working with, all the things. The reality is most of your stuff is not an emergency. Like we are under leadership that gets to dictate some of that. And to their defense, they have the bigger view of what's going on. And I think Robin and I have been in plenty of situations where something gets pushed through that's urgent from them or a situation. And the reality is it probably is. Or there's a whole program that needs an urgent change because of state requirements.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that is more urgent than the instructions somebody wants changed because they think they're not as clear as they could be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like that's the reality of the world we live in. And I think we just have to acknowledge that and work with that. I think that would be my case. And Robin's better at telling people that than I am. So
is Robin your LBC me? She's the
not quite. I think I don't know, Robin. I think Robin sent some strongly worded emails recently. I think honestly Robin might be better at the two sides. She's like a Will and a Josh in one in some ways sometimes.
That must be a tough place to be, Robin.
It really is. Oh no, I'll sometimes ask them like, "Hey, come over here before I send this email to make sure it's not too snarky."
Josh just uses AI, but I get it. I get it.
No, I do. Yeah, make it friendly.
Make it
or
friendly.
I ask Will. But in my defense, make it friendly always adds cheers. It is
Yeah.
literally Will.
That's what
But
I would
AI
do.
make
you
it
know?
friendly is just Will. That's all
Make
it is.
it VP Sparkle approved.
Yes. There you go.
VP Sparkle. Wow.
Man, I have a lot of titles. VP of Sparkle, Oscar Queen.
Yeah, look at you.
Mm-mm.
I just have one long title. That's it.
Still? I thought you got rid of the long title.
Well, I mean, I guess it's not that. It's still longer than some other people. You
That's
know?
fair.
I don't know. It's not just 2 words. It's like 3. You know, and Robin has the same problem. So
Well, technology is a longer word than design, so
yeah, it's
there you
true.
go. Yours is longer.
I'm still a 4-word title today.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Look at
that's
that.
one of those.
We should do an episode on that. What is too long of a job title?
What is your
All of
title?
them.
And are they too long?
I'm writing it down. That sounds great.
Listeners. That's the
We
topic
need to call
everybody
in.
wants to hear about. Yeah, that's what everybody wants to hear about.
That's amazing.
Try writing your signature and see how long it gets. Your email signature.
There should be a character limit on.
My email signature. So, like Office of Digital Learning is like my main job, but then I also teach for 2 different departments. So my email signature is like 4 lines long.
This position in this place, this teacher in that place, this teacher in that place, and Queen of Sparkles, VP of Sparkles, Queen of Oscar.
Queen of Oscar, Oscar
Queen
Queen.
of Oscar.
Really, you know, it's.
And
Oscar
Will, you were
Queen.
saying earlier about how it's not spelled like Oscar.
Right.
But last spring, the ID team actually did a faculty training, like an in-service.
Right.
And our presentation was Oscar, Oscar, Oscar. But it was like Oscar the Grouch. Don't become him. Like, become the Oscar award winning
Oscar
course
Get an
Award.
with
Oscar award.
Oscar.
Yes.
Wow. So that would have looked something like. Oh gosh. Can I spell? There we go. That Oscar.
Yeah.
That would have been the bit.
Yeah, there you go. Look at you.
There it is.
On screen, folks. I want to be able people to see us and feel us. Never mind. I take it back.
Yeah, nope. I just see is fine.
Not
See
weird.
here is totally okay with me. I don't need to engage all the senses on the High Tech Podcast. That's not
We're a 4D podcast, folks.
Nope. No, we're not. Sign it now. We're not that. Anyway,
Josh is also our risk and liability team, and he's cutting me off.
I'm cutting us off at that point.
Oh,
Yeah,
goodness.
I think we've talked about as much as we need to talk about for this episode. I would definitely say if you're looking to figure out what, in my opinion, evaluating and improving courses regularly looks like, I would encourage starting with going and just looking at Oscar. I think that's the easiest thing. There's a lot of details to what we did for our process that Robin and I are happy to talk to you off the podcast about. If you want to talk to us, feel free to hit us up. But we're still improving it, and this was our beta test when we talk about this at a conference. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
If you want to talk to us, being them, you can reach out to us at inbox@hightechpod.us, and that email will get routed to Josh and Rob.
This is so rude. This has been not debated for so long. It's just mean.
It was my fault. I brought it up.
It's true. It was. With that said, next on the High Tech Podcast, Robin will not be here because she made jokes about .us.
Cut.
Oh man.
She won't be, but that's not the reason. Next week, I'm not going to say what we're talking about because we're currently editing the schedule of the podcast, and I just realized that. So
we'll see where we land.
Be on the lookout for the next episode, which will have content that will only be able to be heard and seen. Check that out. As a reminder, you can find us on all the socials, Twitter, YouTube, MySpace, at High Tech Podcast, or at High Tech Pod.
I'll make
whichever one. Just search it. You can do it. I believe in you. Email us inbox at hightechpod.us if you would like to get in contact with us and be on the podcast. Tell us how you feel. Ask a good question. Send us a picture of your pet. I don't know, whatever you want. You do that email as well.
I don't
And
do
you
the
can find
animals
us.
anymore.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
We haven't done them in a little bit. You can
Yeah.
send us a penguin if you'd like. If you're
Oh, yeah.
listening and you want to send us a penguin,
Or
you
a
can do that.
llama.
Or
Or a
squirrel.
llama, because there
Our
is a new
next project is
going
Project
on that's
Llama.
been entitled Project Llama. So
I love that you all use
anyway.
animals.
You can also find us online at hightechpod.us. That is a website with all our fun website pages and things. You can learn more about Robin, because there will be information about Robin on the website for this episode, just like all the other ones, because she's been here a lot. So you can check that out.
Copy and paste.
Okay, folks, that is a wrap on another week. Empowering minds.
Embracing tech, and say it with us here, Robin. Cheers.
Cheers.